cover my face because there was some lunatics back there. I have no actual verification that they were lunatics. They just looked a little lunatic-y to me. Hi everybody, it's Steve, and it's also April 12th, 2021, so you know what that means. Another day, another story, straight from the horse's mouth. I shouldn't insult my mouth like that, but you get my point. But before we get to today's video, remember as always to like my video, share, subscribe to my channel, hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way. I would deeply appreciate it. Makes what I'm doing a little bit easier, just like any other old YouTuber. And I'm always posting new stuff there to give you a little bang for your buck. The link to that is in the description below, as well as the links to my Facebook and Instagram pages closely related to the content that I am producing both here and my other YouTube channel, Steve the Amateur Historian. Go over and give that a subscription as well. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, well, at least I tried. So these are great stories. Stories where, you know, if you lose a pen, that makes sense. A pen is small, you got them all over the place. They can fall into your seat cushions. You can end up dropping them outside, whatever. You lose something small, it's not that big of a deal. But what happens when something massive disappears from sight? That is the focus of today's story, because back in April of 1919, a massive barge carrying tens of thousands of pounds of lumber. The barge was called the Inden. It said I-N-D-E-N, so I'm guessing that was the name of the barge. It was transporting all this lumber with an objective to come into port in Portland. And, you know, I don't know sea jargon, but there was a schooner. I know what that means. There was a schooner helping move this massive barge along, and they were in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Tillamook, Oregon. And I don't know what this is. I'm guessing it's a pulley towing apparatus type thing. If you know what this is, feel free to tell me. Like, I can obviously look it up when I get home, but based on the description, I'm guessing it is some kind of apparatus used to help move the barge along. But the hawser, H-A-W-S-E-R, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, that device snapped, disconnecting this schooner boat from this massive barge. Now, a barge that big, you got to think there's people. There has to be people on. It's not just one guy in a schooner pulling a barge full of lumber with nobody on the barge to make sure everything's okay. So this hawser thing breaks, and the guy, who's named Dan Brown, not the Da Vinci Code guy, just another guy with that same name, he takes his schooner to the coastline so that he can get a new hawser, go back and reattach it, and they can resume their travels to Portland. He goes in, does that, goes back out into the ocean to where the barge is supposed to be, and the barge is suddenly vanished. The barge is nowhere to be found. So Dan Brown is probably a little bit panicked, like, what the F? And he's just traveling or traversing, and this is a barge, so even if he's a couple miles away, he should at least be able to make out the small outline of it on the horizon or something, but he cannot find it anywhere. And it's like, was he, like, again, it's 1919. I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know. I don't know a whole lot about, you know, communication. They had to be at least pretty decent. But it seems like this guy on his schooner, for whatever reason, maybe he didn't have the capabilities on his little schooner. I'm gonna end up saying schooner like 4 billion times in this video, but you know, maybe he didn't have great communication capabilities. Whatever the case, he was not able to see the barge. He was not able to contact it, because if he was, he would be able to figure out where the F it's at. Just nothing. So, you know, after meandering around in the ocean for a while looking for a massive watercraft that, again, it should not be that difficult to see or to find, and you know, I don't know how fast you know, one of these massive barges would be moving on its own, but it's just bizarre that this guy, Dan Brown, felt like he could, you know, just disembark from the whole thing, hit land, get the situation dealt with, get back out there, and the barge would still be kind of in the same general vicinity. Now, I don't know if this barge was ever found again, and if it wasn't, what were the circumstances of its disappearance? Did it hit something and sink? Did it, you know, did somebody who was on board go total rogue and just take off with it? I don't know. But this particular article I found was published many days after this event had occurred, and even by that point, there was no idea. Nobody had any idea. Even Dan Brown, nobody had any idea where this barge had, you know, shuffled off to. Nobody had any idea. And so Dan Brown comes under a little bit of suspicion because, in essence, he did, I guess he gave it the old college try. He circled around the ocean a little bit, and when he didn't see it, he just kind of, it seems like he resumed his route, because the route they would have gone up to the Columbia River between the borders of Oregon and Washington. So they would have gone up the Oregon coastline, then gone down the Columbia River, where they would have been able to pull off either on the Columbia River somewhere, but more likely than not, most of the ports that you would go into were along the Willamette River that branches off of the Columbia River on the northern end of Portland. So, you know, the next time Dan Brown's seen, he's seen in Astoria, which is right up in the top northwest corner of Oregon, right where you would branch off of the ocean and start going down the Columbia River. So it seems like he kind of just resumed his route, and that's really where the story kind of leaves us. You know, inquiries were made to Brown about what had happened, but of course he didn't find anything. So I mean, what benefit was gained by him really explaining all that he knew? Well, there was a barge out there. I know, I was towing it, and you know, the hawser broke, so I had to go get a new hawser, get the hawser fixed, and then I come back and there's no barge. Barge not there anymore. Why use lots of words when few words do trick? And so there's nothing gained by that, but it's always interesting when something vanishes and it's huge. Like, how did this thing just disappear? I'll give it a look. You know, I have the name of the craft. I have the name of the guy moving the schooner. So there may have been a resolution a little further on down the line as to what happened to this barge. But again, considering the story that I found already was several days after this incident had occurred, and still no sighting of this barge, and that's a big craft. You could send a plane out over the ocean, and like you'd make it out. Hey, there's a big barge in the middle of there. You get the barge to identify itself. Maybe it's the Indian. Again, it's so bewildering to me that this thing just disappeared. There was no radio contact of any kind. Again, I don't know how great radio capabilities were in 1919, but you know, when the Titanic was sinking, they were able to send Morse code, Maybe, do they have Morse code capabilities on the Linden? The Indian? I don't know. But I would just think that there would have been people on that barge. So as they started to flow away, did they make efforts to contact someone? Did they have something like, you know, lifeboats or something that they could escape in? If like, it's just like, we're just floating out into the middle of the ocean and like, we're gonna die out here. I don't know. That is a question that bothers me. Again, as somebody who wouldn't even qualify as a novice in terms of knowing life on a barge and what circumstances may have taken effect had this barge just started flowing away. They said that the break that led Dan Brown to having to go get repairs was due to like really heavy seas. So did the heavy seas push the barge further away, or would they be pushing him closer to the shoreline? Again, I don't know, but it's always strange when something that big and that massive just disappears. So that's my story for the day. Sorry I don't know more about maritime. Does that apply to this case? I don't know. But I thank you anyway for watching. And as always, remember to like, share, subscribe to my channel, hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way. I'm always posting new stuff to give you bang for your buck. And the link to my Patreon is in the description below, as well as the links to my Patreon. That's repetitive. As well as the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages. They are also in the links. The links are also, God, I'm screwing this up horribly. The links to my Patreon, Instagram, and Facebook pages are all down there somewhere. And go make use of them. That's all. This has been Steve, and I'll see you tomorrow.